Hello, how's it going? My name is Oliver. Today I just want to make a quick video explaining how I was able to help about 30 new agency owners book their first meeting. It's not too complicated, it's fairly simple. I'm making this video because I noticed that many people are struggling to book their first meeting, and I think many people are overcomplicating the entire process. The amount of messages I get: Oliver, my offer isn't perfect. Is my niche good? I think my niche is saturated. Like a bunch of random stuff, which, they are things you have to think about, and they are very important when you're starting a new agency and you're trying to figure out things. But I think what happens often is, if you watch my previous videos, is that people will pick a service delivery, they'll pick a niche, and then afterwards they'll try to do some outreach for a couple of weeks, and then afterwards they see it doesn't work, they give up, and they restart this entire cycle. All right, I know this is true because this is exactly what I'm seeing in the students of my program. They join, they tell me what they did, and I see it's always the same cycle. They start something, doesn't work, they start something new, doesn't work, and they just keep repeating that. All right, so today I'm going to be explaining exactly what I tell my students, how to book their first meeting, and how they are actually able to book their meeting. All right, later on I'm going to show you not case studies, but just our Discord group. Like whenever someone books a meeting, we like to hype each other up, so we just post it in our group. So I'll just show you like a couple of case studies of people who have done it, but I'm telling you, it's not complicated. All right, you guys are making this thing way more complicated than it has to be. It's fairly simple. All right, so I'm going to be explaining exactly what I tell my agency owners to do to book their first meeting. So first, before we actually get into that, I just want to explain something that I learned from Alex Hormozy. I watched one of his videos, and he basically broke down the different levels of revenue that you're making with your business and what your strategy should be. All right, so since we're mostly beginners, we're just starting out with our businesses, I copied the first one, which was if your business is making in between $0 to $1 million per year. All right, so what should we do? Alex basically explained that the best thing you can do, you focus on the one product, so one service that you're offering. So don't start offering, I'll do your Facebook ads, I'll do Google ads, I'll make your website, I'll do your SEO, all of this crap, which does not matter. All right, so you just focus on the one product, one service. You become a beast in it. You do a bunch of research so you understand how it works and what's the best way of doing it. And once you have that figured out, then you have your winning product. Now, obviously, you have to make a good offer with it. It's going to make your life 100 times easier if you do have a good offer and you do your service in a niche that's somewhat good. And afterwards, he says, pick one channel. All right, the channel, what does it mean? Basically, your channel of outreach. How are you going to get clients? Now, us, we mostly do cold outreach. All right, so that can be cold calling, cold email, cold DM, whichever you prefer. It's the one you're going to be doing. Now, obviously, in my channel, we focus a lot on cold calling. I really believe cold calling is the quickest way to book your first meeting. It was for me. I wasn't too sure if it would be for other people, but now that I am teaching other people how to do it, I see that within their first month, they're able to book a couple of meetings. So it kind of confirmed my idea that it is the quickest way, but it's also the most painful and probably the least fun way of getting clients. But it's the quickest way. That's 100% for sure. So first, what do we do? All right, so we pick one channel, so one cold outreach. So we do cold calling, and we pick one product. Afterwards, I'll just make my camera smaller. Okay, so this is basically what I tell people to do with their cold calls. All right, obviously I do expand on each of these points a bit more when I'm actually teaching someone, but if I had to make a complete overview of what the cold calling process looks like, the sales process, this is exactly it. Once you have your offer, your service, you're ready to start contacting clients. First, you want to determine your targeted location and niche. All right, what do I say? Niche is pretty obvious. Everyone talks about niche, but why location? If you're going to be doing about 100 cold calls per day, you have to stay organized, right? You cannot just cold call 100 here, 100 there, another 100 there, and then afterwards, after a couple of weeks, you kind of get mixed up and you start calling the same businesses over and over, or you start cold calling in one region, and then you believe that you kind of called all of the businesses in that region because you didn't keep track of things, and you start moving away from that initial region to a different place. And then over time, you basically not run out of area, but you start kind of overlapping in places where you've called already. So what I like to do, I basically just pull up a map of the country where I'm going to be targeting. So let's say the US. I look at all the states. There's a bunch of websites that basically do this for you. I look at the states, and then within every state, I look at all the cities. I use my software to source my leads, and I organize it by cities. Okay, so we want to source about 100 potential clients every single day using D7 Lead Finder. That is the software that I'm recommending people to use. It does work a bit like funky when it comes to UK and like different countries, but in the US, D7 works very well. So you pick a location, you pick a city, well, you pick a state, you pick a city, and you source about 100 leads for that day. You use a tracking sheet to organize your leads. I made a video on my own tracking sheet. You can just copy it. Very important. This goes back to the first point, which is keeping everything organized. And then you start conducting your cold calls. Right? If you want the script, I also made a video on my script. It's very simple, straight to the point. It has been proven to work. It worked for me. It worked for students in the program. There's no reason why you wouldn't be able to succeed with this exact script, the one that I posted in my videos. Once you start doing your cold calls, this is where basically one of two things will happen, right? Well, three things actually. So most common thing is that they're going to say, no, I'm not interested. It happens, you move on to the next person. Doesn't matter. If you do get a yes, you basically have two types of yeses. There's a immediate yes over the phone. So you basically pitch them a meeting. They're like, yeah, that sounds interesting. Let's hop on a call. That is the best case scenario. It doesn't happen often, but that is the best case scenario. In that case, over the phone, I would use my Calendly link. All right. So if you don't have that, basically create a Calendly calendar where you can basically set up your hours and when you can actually receive cold call meetings, and it's also going to automatically send like a invite link to your prospect. So what I do is I pull up Calendly, open my calendar over the phone with the person. I'm like, all right, perfect. That's tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. work with you. He might say, no, 10 a.m. is better. All right, perfect. If I have it available, I'll book it. It's going to ask for his name and email. I will ask him over the phone or already have that information ready, and I'll book it for him. All right. And then that person is going to receive an email with the invite to the Calendly. That's the best case scenario. Okay. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes it does happen. It's fun when it does. What's most likely going to happen is that they're going to show some sort of sign of interest. They'll be like, yeah, that sounds interesting. And they're going to ask you for more information. They're like, yeah, can you send me an email with more information? That's like most of the times when you get a yes, that's what's going to happen. Okay, they're going to show some signs of interest, not completely sold on the idea of getting on a meeting with you, but they want something extra just to get it. You just randomly call them. So they kind of want to do their research on you, which is normal. What I tell my people to do, I say, perfect, I will send you an email with more information. So you basically you send a follow-up email. This is extremely important. All right, I think this is where most people screw up. This is why they don't succeed with cold calling. Okay, when you send the email, you cannot just send a plain text and say, hi, my name is Oliver. I run Facebook ads, buy my service, or you put a link to your calendar, you book your call here. Okay. The whole reason why they ask you for emails is because they want more information. They want to learn a bit more about you, not just so you can repeat exactly what you said over the phone. So what I tell people to do is to offer something valuable in their emails. Okay, that something valuable is going to be very different depending on what you're pitching, what your service. It can be a PDF, an ebook, your website, some sort of guide or how-to, or something that can basically help the business. One of two things are going to happen. Either the prospect is going to book the second meeting directly using your Calendly link when you sent it on the email. So either on your website or your ebook or your PDF, whatever you sent, you will include your link somewhere. This is what we want ideally to happen, but again, most of the time it's not going to go that way. All right. Sometimes people will directly book it on their own. If that happens, that is very good. Okay, that's a sign that they're actually really interested. Most of the time, they're just going to ignore you. They're not going to answer you. It's not because they're not interested. It's just, they receive a bunch of emails. Maybe they didn't realize that it was you. Maybe they looked at it and, they're like, okay, I'll write to him, later, and they forget about you. It's perfectly normal. All right. It's very rare that on your first point of contact, with the prospect, they're going to book a meeting and be super interested. All right. You have to follow up multiple times. So what's going to happen most of the time is that you're going to have to do a follow-up call. All right. So you make your first call. They're like, yeah, that sounds interesting. Send me an email. You send the email. They don't answer you. 1 week later, you call them back. When you call them back, it's basically a follow-up. All right. It's very simple. You'll say hey, it's Oliver here. Remember we spoke last week about helping you guys acquire more clients for your business. I sent you a quick email with a PDF. Did you guys have time to look at it, or did you have any questions or anything like that? Something super simple like that. And you basically just continue the conversation from there. All right. And normally that's the typical route. Okay. Typical route. You send the email. They're interested. You send the email, they don't answer, you follow up, and then on that follow-up, they'll book the call with you. That is what 8 times out of 10 is what's going to happen when you book your first couple of meetings. You book the meeting using Calendly. All right, I explained it earlier how to do it. And then you do your meeting over Google Meet or Zoom, whatever you use. And then they sign the contract and become a client. All right, so that is more or less the whole process of what cold calling looks like. It's not too complicated. It's fairly simple, but it's a structure you have to follow. This is something that I realize many people don't understand. They believe that if they don't get the immediate yes over the phone, that the prospect is not interested and to just give up. And even when they ask for an email, they're like, yeah, he's not interested. He just said, send me an email. They send the email and they don't follow up. All right, that's a huge mistake. There's someone in the program. He told me there was 9 people interested. They're like, yeah, send me an email. He sent them all an email. They did not respond. And then he booked a call with me and he's like, Oliver, nothing's happening. I sent all these emails. No one's answering me. Your ebook doesn't work or your PDF doesn't work. And I'm like, well, did you follow up? Did you call them again? He's like, no. I'm like, well, you have to. I'm like, you have to follow up with these people nonstop until they tell you to just piss off and quit calling me. He followed up with those 9 people and booked 4 or 5 meetings. All right, so that's the natural way of, that's most of the time, that's what's going to happen. Okay, so here I want to move on to a different point, all right? When you do your cold calls, all right, this is what's going to happen for most of you guys, okay? Because if this wasn't the case, all of you guys would have clients right now. Right, so I know this is true and I'm speaking by experience. Even people in the program who have full-on mentorship with me are still facing this exact issue. So I cannot imagine how someone who's just trying to do this on their own. I know for me, when I first started on my own, I was basically doing the slow way. All right, I was struggling a lot. So what's the slow way? What's the typical route? You're excited, you start your business, you start doing cold calls. Okay, you watch my videos, you have my script. You're like, okay, Oliver says I have to cold call 100 businesses per day. I do it. Maybe for the first week, you're super motivated. You watch my videos, you watch other videos, you fully believe in the process, and you're like, okay, it's just a number game. I have to cold call. You do it for a week. Nothing happens. You don't book any meetings. No one's interested. You're like, what the hell is happening? Right? And then it's the second day, right? So you wait over the weekend. On the weekend, you watch other YouTube videos. You hear that cold email might be better, or cold DM might be better. Anyways, different ideas start coming up in your head. And then second week, you're slightly unmotivated. You're not as hype as week 1 because week 1 was all exciting. Now week 2 is fuck, okay, I have to actually make this work. So you do 50 cold calls per day. All right, you're not as motivated, but you're still doing it. And then same thing happens week 3. Maybe you'll make a couple cold calls, but ultimately that's when you're gonna give up. Right? That's what I noticed, that most of the time, week 3, week 4, if you haven't booked a meeting, you're like you basically give up from there. All right, so you did about 750 cold calls, and you didn't book a meeting. Okay, 750 is nothing, by the way. Right? It's nothing. So this is why you guys are failing. All right, because you're using the slow way. It's not working. You give up because you see that you're not getting immediate results because you guys are impatient, which is normal. Everyone's impatient, but you have to learn how to be patient and just trust the process. And the only way you're going to make this work is by staying consistent, right? And it's hard to motivate yourself to do it. That's what I realized. But it's a lot easier to motivate someone else to do it, all right, if they have the right motivation. Which brings me to the fast way, right? I've mentioned it in a couple of my videos. You guys know that I prefer doing things that way. As you can see, fast way, I replicated the first line, all right? I will assume that you will give up within 3 weeks on your own. And I'm telling you from experience, from people in the program, that is not what's happening. Okay, so on your own, you do 750 cold calls. But let's say you also hire a trained cold caller. All right, this person understands the process. They know how to source the leads, how to respond depending on the type of yes, how to send a follow-up email, how to book the meeting. They know everything how to do it, right? You hire them, they do 100 cold calls with you. Second week, they do 100 as well. Third week, they do 100, and then it keeps going on. All right, so they basically do 500 cold calls per week. And the reason why they won't give up is because this is their job. Okay, you're paying them to do it. Some people pay them commission-based, other people pay them with a base salary. You do things how you want to do it, but ultimately, without a strong team behind you, you will not be, I don't want to say not be, but it's going to be very hard to book the meeting. Not because you cannot do it, because you're bad. It's because you most likely don't have the discipline to actually stay consistent every single week to cold call. But these people, when you hire them, they do have the discipline because they have motivation, they have money, they're getting paid. But you're not getting paid. You only get paid once you book a meeting. And if you haven't booked a meeting for a month, it's going to be hard to stay consistent. But these people, they're getting paid. And also they're happy to cold call nonstop. Right? You cannot, I mentioned it in my other videos as well, you cannot just hire a random person. Be very careful. There are many people out there who claim to be very good, but once you actually start seeing them cold call, it's like, it's like, yeah, I think you were bullshitting on your resume, you know? So just be careful, give them proper training. But I really believe the quickest way to do this is to just hire someone and manage the team and make sure they're staying consistent with it. Okay? This is something I wasn't really planning on doing, but many people sent me a message asking me if I can basically give them a cold caller from my program. Like, they don't want the program, they just want a cold caller. All right, so that's something I've been doing, not super frequently, but a couple of people have messaged me and I have done that for them. So if this is something you'd want, we can definitely discuss about it. So just send me a message on Instagram and I'll see if I can actually help you or not, depending on what you're doing. But if you are interested to having a trained cold caller by me, knows exactly what to do, send me a message and we'll talk about that. And yeah, these, as I wanted to show you guys before I end the video. See these cold caller, this is the group. If you haven't joined the Discord group, feel free to join. Everyone's super cool, everyone's hyping each other up all the time. But here, look, see, we have Yiming, he's in the program. He booked 2 meetings and 2 people who were really interested. So basically, like, send me an email, I'm interested, in a single day of cold calling. All right. In one day, he got basically 2 yeses, 2 meetings, and 2 people who were really interested. All right. Here we have Raz, booked my first meeting after 2 cold calls on his second day. All right. It works. We have here David, booked my first meeting today. here, Kieran, another meeting. Kieran's been popping off. He's booking a bunch of meetings. We have Brandon, another meeting booked. See, it's like back to back here. It wasn't a meeting with people interested, but still. See, like, this process does work. You just have to stay consistent. Make sure you don't give up and just trust the process. Right? There's a reason why cold calling has always been around. It's because it works. If businesses weren't receiving cold calls, that would mean that cold calling wouldn't be effective. But if they are constantly receiving cold calls from other people and from you, then that means that someone out there is making lots of money by cold calling and they want to stay consistent with it. Right? And I promise you guys, if you stay consistent and you do it, and you have a good team member on your side to help you stay consistent, to help you hold accountable of yourself, you will succeed. It's just a question of time. You know, it might take a day like it did for a couple of people, or it might take a couple of weeks. But if you stay consistent, you will book your first meeting, guaranteed.